There was once a great shepherd. He lived and owned on top of a mountaintop. He owned valleys, he owned pastures, he owned seas. This shepherd is what men might call today rich or wealthy. But this shepherd had a love for his sheep. This shepherd had a love for his sheep. The shepherd would shear his sheep, protect his sheep, milk his sheep. Whatever it was needed to be done for his sheep, the shepherd would make sure that he does it. Whether he had his helpers help him, or whether he went out and did it himself, he'd make sure that every single need that these sheep had were met, and pretty much all of their wants as well. So much so that this shepherd gave his sheep free will. Didn't keep them in gates, didn't keep them confined. The only confinement that he had for these sheep, which wasn't a confinement at all, was just obedience to his word. He never worried about them leaving, but he did give them free will. So if they decide to run away, that was on them. These sheep had the best fruit, the best hay, the best grass, where they stayed. These sheep had good fields to choose from. Again, this shepherd had it all. He had the seas, he had the high mountains, he had the valleys, everything that a sheep might want. And he had the warmth if it got too cold, he had the heat if it got too hot. This shepherd knew how to take care of his sheep. They lacked for nothing. So again, on his daily journeys, he went for a walk one day with his plethora of sheep. As he usually does, he took his sheep down to the water, down to the seas. But this specific time, there was 2 sheep that as they were drinking from the water fountain, as they were drinking from the seas, they noticed their reflections. And they said, "Oh, wow, I'm pretty." They said, "Oh, wow, I'm gorgeous." They said, "Oh, wow, I'm beautiful. Great am I, for my beauty is seen by all men." So as they were staring at themselves, as they were marveling at themselves, their eyes just began to look up. And out in the distance, they happened to see another field. Now, as the shepherd had his eyes on them, he would not stop them if they left. Because again, it's their choice. The shepherd knows for a fact that there's nothing out there for you that I can't provide for you in here. Everything out there, out on the other fields that I did not ordain for you to be at, can't do what I can do for you here. So the shepherd understood that in his mind. But the sheep are like, whoa, look at that field over there. Oh my gosh, the water, the grass just looks a little bit more greener than what it is over here. And so these two sheep decided that they were just gonna skip their way to this other field. And so these sheep left their home, left their kingdom, left the place in which they were taken care of, because they fell in love with a beauty that was not given to them by their own works. And so these two sheep, as they went to the other fields, they saw goats. They saw a bunch of other animals that the shepherd knew about, but these sheep did not. And so these goats began to train the sheep on how to be rambunctious and how to be unruly. And so the sheep started having a grand old time within their own minds. These sheep started running amok. These sheep started, doing the jive. Dipping and dive. So the life that these sheep lived was meant for a goat, but not for a sheep. For a while, it felt good to be doing something out of the ordinary, to be doing something that's a little bit different. For a while, it felt good. Until one day, they happened to see their reflection. But this time, as they saw the reflection, they saw a few specks start coming up on their coat. It wasn't like the pure white coats they once had when they were with the shepherd. But now that they're running with the goats, they start having specks. In the sheep's mind, they're like, okay, whatever. Whatever, it's probably just, something else. And so they're still having a grand old time, still doing what they're doing, running with the goats, doing what goats do, doing what the other animals do, doing what the snakes do. Not realizing that as they did what others were doing, they no longer were doing what they were created to do. And so although the flesh of the sheep were loving it, both the sheep now realized that there was an issue. But both of them kept ignoring it. Now the good shepherd knew that these sheep weren't with him. And the good shepherd had plenty of other sheep, plenty of them. But even if he missed just one, he was going to worry about them. Not for himself, but for them. Because the shepherd, again, remember, he's a wealthy, rich man. Owns plenty of land. So he can get another sheep like that, just like that. But that's not how the good shepherd works. The good shepherd does not put in energy and want this energy to be wasted. And so the sheep, the two lost sheep, right? Eventually they started missing the good shepherd. They started realizing that this life that they're running with the snakes, running with the goat, wasn't for them, because one day a snake tried to come up behind them and try to strangle them. Lo and behold, through the grace that was upon their life, they were able to slip away from a snake. Now, if any of you understand nature, you know that ain't never gonna happen. It was only by grace that these sheep were saved from the venomous snake. Because sheep aren't meant to fight. Their hearts are light. So it wasn't by their doing in which they won this battle. It was by grace. So through these scuffles and tuffles, the sheep realized that we need to make a change. This life we live in ain't for us. And so they both decided that they were going to turn back and go towards the Good Shepherd. Now, on their way back to the Good Shepherd, they went back and saw the same seas, saw the same fountain, saw the same drinking well in which they saw at first, and they fell in love with their beauty. Now this time, they saw their reflection. They were no longer as beautiful. They were filled with speckles throughout their entire coat, their entire body. And then they realized their nakedness. Then they realized the way of their sin. Because they began to live a life that was not for them. They began to live a life that was for snakes, for creeping things. And so they immediately felt shame and they immediately felt naked. And so in one of the sheep's heart, in both the sheep's heart, they both felt shame. But here's where the separation comes. The same shame that both sheep felt created two different outcomes for both of them. One sheep felt the shame and ran straight towards the Good Shepherd. The other sheep felt the shame and realized, or said within their own mind, that the Good Shepherd will never accept me again. And the sheep that felt the shame so bad, instead of running back to the Good Shepherd to get healing, they ran back to the goats, back to the snakes that want to bite them and eat them. They ran back to them. Now, lo and behold, some time had passed. The sheep that ran back to the Good Shepherd, eventually over time, the shepherd put the sheep through a training program, if you might say, or a transformation program. And eventually the sheep gained back its pure white coat. But the sheep had to realize its mistakes. The sheep had to realize that it lived a life that was not meant for it. Although the goats, the snakes, all the other animals were on the land of the Good Shepherd, the Good Shepherd knew what was meant for the sheep to live. And so the sheep understood that. And so the sheep realized what it did. And because it realized and it had a contrite heart and it had a heart that wanted to be in harmony with the will that the Good Shepherd had, the sheep regained its purity. And so it was all well with that sheep. Now the other sheep, because of that same shame, went back to the place in which it was not meant for it. And so the same grace that was used because it then started ignoring the place where it was. It started ignoring what it was meant to be. Those same snakes, those same birds, those same vultures that tried to get it the first time. Because the sheep disavowed itself from its Good Shepherd, was now gone. If you're not able to shake the speckles off of your coat and realize that yes, we sometimes make mistakes, that yes, sometimes we fall by the wayside, that yes, some things might happen to us. But that's what the plight and the understanding of transformation and saving and redemption is for. To realize that yes, you fell. To realize that yes, you lived a life that wasn't meant for you to live. But that shame that you feel, don't allow it to keep you in the way that you are, but use that shame as a catapult to move you back towards the Heavenly Father. So you can then get true and full cell activation.